KCI Kindled, Creating Space for Meaningful Dialogue, a podcast brought to you by Kahnawake Collective Impact. The goal of this podcast is to open up a safe space for community members to have conversations about current social issues, both intercommunity and global issues, culture and heritage, and language. This space encourages respectful expression of different opinions and perspectives. The opinions and perspectives expressed belong to the guests of the show and do not represent the views of Kahnawake Collective Impact or KSCS Kahnawake. This episode's discussion contains sensitive subject matter. Please listen with discretion.
Have you ever been gaming or working online classes and your internet service constantly gets interrupted? First Nations Fiber is about to ensure that just won't happen again. Get ready for high speed at a new level. Click on fnfiber.com and sign up today. First Nations Fiber, empowering people through connectivity.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to KCI Kindled, Creating Space for Meaningful Conversation. I'm your host, Karina Peterson, and I'm from Kahnawake Collective Impact, and we are on the second episode of the Men's Health series, which is a collaboration between Kahnawake Collective Impact and KSCS Kahnawake. So in the studio, we're just going to do a little quick rundown of the guests that we have in studio. We have some returning guests from the last episode, and we also have a new guest. So welcome, Tom. Maybe you could introduce yourself and say a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Karina. My name is Tom Deerhouse. I'm a traditional support worker working out of the Family Wellness Center, which is also part of KSCS, Kahnawake Community Services. Glad to be here.
Well, thanks for coming on the show today. We have John Daibo.
Hi, my name is John Daibo. I am head coach and director at Kahnawake CrossFit, and happy to be here again. It's been like, 5 minutes?
In a week.
Shh, that's supposed to be a secret. We're recording 2 episodes back to back.
Talk about secrets on this one, Karina.
It's too vulnerable.
And we're also joined by Brent Beresford.
Hi, I'm a psychologist at KSCS.
Okay.
Happy to be here again.
So the last episode that we were here with KCI Kindled was the Men's Health episode on vulnerability. So this episode 2, is going to be about like careers in education, maybe some financing, and just our traditional roles here in Kahnawake and culturally as Ungwe Indigenous people. So I'm not sure where we want to get started with this, but maybe I could pose this question. Okay, so what do you do? What do you do for work? Did you go to school? Why did you choose the area that you're involved in? Let's start that question. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Unless you look like you're ready.
It's like the Spider-Man meme with all the...
I'm pointing at John.
So, I mean, my job right now is basically coordinator and head coach or head programmer at Kahnawake CrossFit. And it's a private business that me and Derek Stacy had opened up in around 2016. It says 2015 on the sign, but really it was 2016. And basically our goal in mind was to, like I spoke on the last podcast, allow people to see that there is another option when it comes to working on their physical, working on their mental health, whatever avenue you want to take with that, but just giving them a place to feel good about themselves. So I came out of high school. I didn't really go to college or university or anything, but I guess you can say I was obsessed with what I was doing. So I was kind of, in quotations, studying on the side, and more natural, organic studying, I guess you can say, So I kind of just practiced and went from there. And eventually I started helping one person with their physical health. Obviously, it's appearance at that age. A lot of people are more focused on what they look like rather than how healthy their heart is. And then I just kind of built it from there. And now we have somewhere around 170 members in Kahnawake that go there at all different ages. And it's growing. People are starting to see that it's okay to take care of yourself. You know what I mean? So that's what I do pretty much, is just help people with their physical health and I don't like to say I do mental health, but I think sometimes that I do, so.
Oh, for sure you do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's what I do.
Okay. Who's next?
maybe I'll go. It just occurred to me now, I know why. Why I'm here, I'm to provide the comic relief. So I'll start off by saying, boys and girls, don't follow my career path. It's a lot of twists and turns, but it is definitely an evolution for me to be where I am, doing counseling, helping my own people. To give a wide, some background on myself, I was born in the States, Detroit, Michigan, went through the Catholic school system there. And I mentioned this, I went through a college prep school called University of Detroit High School, run by the Jesuit priests and lay teachers. So that was like a good formation at the start. And so naturally, going from a high school, you go to the college, University of Detroit. And I was kind of pressured by my dad to go into either a profession where you can get a job. So I chose mechanical engineering. Detroit being the Motor City capital, then later on, on the side of murder capital. But the automotive industry was there, being Ford headquarters, GM, and Chrysler. But as it turns out, I was lacking in, I hated the calculus. I like the science part, but the physics part and some of the calculus, all those, I didn't do well in mechanical drawing. So I basically flunked out of after 2.5 years and had the opportunity to come to Ganawage because my father had family here. This was in 1984. 21 at the time. You guys can do the math. And didn't think I would stay, but it turned out I did take care of my aunt and uncle, great aunt and uncle, and then got involved in the community fairly intensely and seriously. Joined the fire brigade in '86, getting involved in community, and 1990 was significant. I was just a laborer, construction, but only later did I have the inclination to go back to school. And that was in social work, off-campus program through Carleton University, where the professors actually came here to the reserve. So that worked for me. I was still working and taking classes at the same time. So doing that, let me just cover really fast. 1986, joined the fire brigade. And by the fall of '86, became emergency medical technician and a volunteer firefighter. And fairly active. And there was a lot of work. I did that for 20 years, up until 2006. 96, 97, 93, joined the MAD group. Got hired as a MAD group with being a teen group facilitator. That lasted 1 year. Why? Because a lot of stresses and personal stuff I needed to work through after 1990, burnout and stress and all that. So I had to resign. It was after that, another opportunity. That was the idea to go back to school and get training. And social work seemed to appeal to me, just trying to help and continue being a helper. In 1997, roughly, got a certificate status. But I was, it was a challenge because I still had to work. And I couldn't fit the stage requirements to work in the community. So that was unfortunate. But I got a job at the Eastern Door as a journalist, reporter, and photographer in this very office. This is very building.
This must be familiar territory for you.
This used to be my office right here. I used to work out of here anyway, second floor. And learned a lot. This was under Kenneth Deere as editor and publisher. And from and having my name in the paper, like the byline in early 1998, I decided to run for a band council. I don't know, I had a crazy idea. So once again, kids, don't try. You can try it this way, but you're not always successful, but it's very interesting. And I think it makes for a great story. That I did get elected, I think the 11th position out of the 11th. And one thing I felt bad, I'm related to Billy Two Rivers. He was the one that was bumped off. And I became on council for a 1 year term. It was 2 years term at the time, and there were 3 other new ones. So it was quite a turnover of a band council from 1998 to 2000. I did run again, but you know how politics are. Sometimes things don't work out the way close but no cigar for getting reelected. But after that, I decided to try to actively use the social work certificate, the social work background to get a job. And I did KCI at first, and then youth protection worker. Did that for a couple of years, then made a lateral move to support services, did that for a while, operating out of the main building above the post. And then 2017, and just to kind of give a background, I didn't really think of it as a career. Maybe 10 years in, but yeah, I'll get serious about it. Try to find your niche, try to find what you're good at, your role. So I was doing, besides the counseling and assessments, kind of like the mental health field, working with that clientele, more training, and just getting involved. So a lot of interventions, understanding the laws and things. And somehow those skills in the fire brigade, ambulance, like the interventions and the dealing with people, some of those skills are transferable definitely to counseling and just, applying, what do they call it? It's pre-hospital intervention, but it's not confrontation. It's just, working with people. So it very much helped along. So I did that while working at the same time. And I guess significantly, 2017, I was selectively approached or offered the part to be a traditional support worker, which I was kind of doing at the main building, but now it became official. I was working with teenagers who wanted more culture, knowledge, and funny part of this is they wanted to know about medicines, but they were looking at mind-altering things to in the natural world. And I was kind of saying, no, that's not the purpose of that. It's all prevention and for your good health and mental wellness, health and spiritual health. But all of these kind of things was custom made for the teenagers I was meeting in placement like Shawbridge and other places. But 2017 till the present, I'm a traditional support counselor. Sagodisnienis is the name for being a helper. And the sideline of that too is working with residential school survivors and also day school survivors and their families and the generations that come afterwards. So that's been a very interesting and challenging area, but I find it's a much needed thing. And again, another interesting story that I married into a family. In 1991, my first wife, my first set of in-laws, both attended residential school. And they actually met up in Espanola, Ontario, the residential school nicknamed Spanish. Mm-hmm. They're fortunate they're still alive, but the numbers of survivors are dwindling. There's just a handful now, 7 or 8, I believe, in town. And so that's it in a nutshell.
I don't know about a nutshell.
Yeah. Bunch of nuts.
A coconut shell.
Yeah.
All right. No, that's
pretty cool,
it's
though.
amazing. That's like a jack of all trades type of stuff. But the common thread that I'm seeing here is that you were trying to help. Like the helper part is in almost everything that you mentioned. So that seems like that's always been there.
Yeah, but I'll point out that I kind of left out some of the crazy stuff that young men do as they're trying to find their path.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
in
one part, it's nice kind of retracing my roots, getting deeply into Mohawk culture, thinking this is a paradise, this is fine, but then finding that, oh, wow, these Indians like to drink and Indians like to party, like the late 80s, if you can imagine what it was like, and the drinking and driving and the fatalities and so on, which I saw firsthand, and spending my money and time foolishly as young men do until you smarten up. And 1990 was kind of it got serious for a second. It got serious. Mm-hmm. This is the real thing. And, I was tear gassed at the island when the helicopter landed on the island, saw the skirmishes, but that didn't sway me from wanting to just, work it out in diplomacy and that kind of thing. I wouldn't consider myself a fighter, although I did have a golf club in my hand along with another buddy of mine. We wanted to take practice swings. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. So I'll leave it there. Yeah.
I completely appreciate all the experiences that you had. And for sure, I think that it'll add to the conversation that we're going to have. And now, Brent.
What's your story? I want to know that.
Oh, yeah. I'll try and keep it brief. Way too much school, I think. Yeah, a long academic career. And there is this sense that it was the wrong education, like as much as, going through the academic hoops was something that allowed me to do what I do now. There has been this sense of having to unlearn so much of what I've had to like make this system sort of get used to and learn in order to be more open and actually use this system, this nervous system and this heart to accompany people. So I did a lot of university, I got a PhD in psychology, and it feels like the trainings that are now being offered, like trauma-based things, touch really closer to the heart of what it is to be in like a healing profession than do these academic pathways. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you for sharing. So we have 3 individuals here that have very different backgrounds and very different choices of education and career paths, and someone who's tried almost every career path out there. We're all different age groups sitting in here, but there's something that Tom said that I wrote down was, you mentioned that when you were very young and just coming out of high school, that there was pressure on you to do something to just get a job. So like that, I wrote that in quotes, like get a job. And I'm just wondering if that's something that, is there a pressure for you guys as men to do something to just get a job and like that's it, because you need to make money, because you need to do whatever it is you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. We didn't want to talk about that, Karina. I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's a good question. Well, we talked about that at the gym. I said the way that I was told is that we have a survival and a surviving and thriving mentality at all times, or at least in different degrees with each one. And if your parents are telling you that you have to get a job and it's urgent, we might be able to agree that it's a survival mentality at that point. We need money, right? And then we talked about how we have a lot of men who jump on already paved jobs like ironworking and things that we already know. So we go into that survival mentality again. It's been done. Go. But then when you think about the mentality of the men, how many men actually want to do this? And then again, it's like, well, we don't talk about that, right? Well, maybe we should.
I think that's what I'm getting at here. Yeah,
sure, right? And how many men want to be an iron worker? How many want to be so and so? In my experience, it was how many. I don't want to be a lacrosse player. I don't want to be an iron worker. I don't know how many. I don't know if that's going to offend anybody. But in our conversation we had earlier, I think that it's okay to talk about those things, and it should be. Number one, we should be able to thrive and discuss, well, in a good community, what do you want to do, Karina? What do you like to do? And you say whatever. Okay, well, let's get you good at that.
I think,
and then sorry, but
mm-hmm.
Get a job means I don't have enough time to think about what I want to do.
Yeah.
If my father, I remember my father one time, he said, I think it was at home, like just being a kid playing. And he looked at me, he said, how come you don't go out? How come you don't do anything? What are you? I don't want to say, but he called me names, and I'll never forget that, because at the time it hurt a lot, but now I think about how wrong that was, right? It's not good to just all of a sudden, like we said earlier, you come out of nowhere, you start yelling at your kids. It means there's a problem, but it's supposed to be this way, and that's how we survive,
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we're at the point now where we should start thinking about thriving. How much money do we have in Kahnawake now? How many people can say that they have more than enough? How many people they have too much? but it's still, I need more. Sometimes I need more. We have to, like we were saying earlier with the men, I have to keep working. I have to keep working. Maybe you should start thinking about relaxing a little bit now, but there's coming from that place of coming out of the residential school and in the day school. It's almost like we have to, even see it now with some of the younger generation. I have to do something about that. I have to get to work right away. I have to do something. Or for a male, as a male, it's my father was an iron worker, so I have to be an iron worker, even though I might hate every single day of my life. It's like, why?
Because it's tradition, right?
Yeah,
It's traditions.
But it's like I said with the fried bread earlier. I don't like fried bread. And I know that's gonna, I might get banished from the community for that, but
not allowed at powwow anymore.
It makes me feel bad. I don't like it. I'd rather eat, honestly, fish or deer or moose. That's amazing food. So why is it wrong when I tell somebody that I don't want that? I don't want something that's gonna make me feel bad.
So let's explore that though. So why would it be hard for you guys as men to be like, okay, you're pressured to get a job right after high school or whatever it is. So why is it hard to be like, no, I want to take an alternate route. I want to maybe explore school, or I want to try different things. I want to do something that makes me happy. So where do the hardships come from that? Or why is that so hard to voice or to express?
It sounds like this isn't very different from the last podcast,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to say, no, I want to know what makes me happy, that means that somewhere inside you actually know what it means to feel that happiness, right? That means you have to have had space in order to explore those kinds of things. And if there's been no space for that, and there's this survival mode or this pressure to just do something, do something with your life, then I liked what you said, John. It's like, we don't have time. We don't have time for that. You need to go and be productive. And, whether it's one of those paths that is already traced out, or it's like these things that being a doctor or being a lawyer or something like that, those are it's just get to work, make some money and do something that we'll be proud of, when we look at you at the end of it. It's not about the process. It's not about learning. It's not about expressing yourself. It's really about the end goal.
Or even satisfaction along the way.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess it does come down to a certain type of vulnerability to be able to express this is not for me. But I'm like, how do our traditional roles tie into this too? Because that is very much tied to Indigenous men, right? To be the provider. So to be the provider, then you have to how does that play into it?
That's a good facet. Before we get into that, I'll just share an example I think might apply to some people, and men in particular. That your families, your parents are your first teachers. So if they have issues going on, like maybe substance abuse, alcohol use, or mental illness, or special needs children in a family system, that kind of affects you growing up, and it's a challenge. And in my case, my father's alcohol use kind of affected me. I was pushed and also shamed. I wasn't good in calculus. I had to do summer school for 2 years after freshman and sophomore year, and shamed. And here's the record. That's a big F. Tape it there and look at that, and you do better next time. But of course, I was under the influence. But other times, he wouldn't say a thing. Nicest guy, happy-go-lucky, sociable, but he took it to the extreme of the social part. But so the way I use that, it's a life lesson. Why I see in other people growing up, their parents, they have to maybe work on things before they even think of working. It's to their benefit. Hopefully, do some prevention work on yourself, work on your traumas and your hurts, so you can better, first of all, study, because it's hard for you to study when you have these pressures, things at home going on that are distracting you. So if you're better able to focus and have the conversations, like it was mentioned, families should be talking. So we did some of that, but it could have been more consistent and more thorough. So that's something I learned. It's something that I know I kind of advocate and talk about for the people that I work with. So back to the traditional part. That's an interest of mine. Can you rephrase and remind how?
I guess my question was like, how do traditional roles for men play out in terms of career choices versus educational paths and vocational, and how does that play into it? Like, I
have to chuckle a bit because what does traditional mean present day? It can be. I think it's wide open now. You could have a stay-at-home dad, and the woman is working somewhere as a manager and bringing home the bacon. So it really is wide open. But I think the key thing is with a little bit of discussion and communication, young men and women can follow their dreams, and whether it be academics, higher education, or their dream of could be a trade, could be ironwork, 4 years apprenticeship, and then start the job. Or I know they're kind of promoting trades, plumbing and carpentry, and those kind of trades, $35, $40 an hour, and to be your own boss. And I guess the actual goal. Mm-hmm. But you start off in that trade, and then you work your way up.
Mm-hmm. You talked about that, right? How roles are it's kind of just out there now. But traditionally, like our men and women did have specific roles. Like men
did the work, and women our mothers were the household and took care of the children.
Yeah. Traditionally, as Iroquois people, that's how we kind of went. But now, like you mentioned, that the roles seem to have changed and times are different now. So what does traditional mean now for us? Like, do men still feel like they have to fulfill those traditional roles? Like
you're talking
culturally traditional roles.
Culturally traditional is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think it's what Tom said is it can go both ways now. Mm-hmm. Because like you think at the time when one is you have to look at when this information was received, what was the time like, right? So I believe that the men being more physical were the ones who had to go provide, and the woman being more caring of the children and the families, staying home. And that still happens today, but women can provide now too, because you don't have to be physically, you can have a really good job and just be smart now, Mm-hmm. So in a traditional sense, maybe we'd have to see how. I would even say that if a man feels like he has to be a certain way, that's not good. I don't think that's, we talk about our culture, you want to dig deeper. Well, natural law is the king of laws. And if you don't feel good about something, it's not natural for you, mm-hmm. So then we talk about, like I said, with thriving, if you're good at something, now you can actually provide with that. And if you don't want to do that, you don't have to, you can just, but I think in our culture, it should be like, again, we go back a long time ago, you had the women who were probably the best mothers ever. They knew exactly what they had to do, and they probably loved what they were doing. Because you have to remember, there's nothing else to do like at that time. You don't have, all right, there's no ladies' night. You know what I mean? Like you're together all the time, and the men, like you had some of the best hunters. They probably loved what they were doing, and those were the options laid out for them. But I can guarantee you that if you gave them more options, that it would be okay, and it should be okay for them to choose those ones too, if they had it at the time. Mm-hmm. So now we live in a world, like there's so much opportunity here, but yet the culture that we hold on to, I think we still hold on to it a little bit too much. And we think that that's how we have to be. Mm-hmm. But then I would argue with you and I would say, well, why do we still have so many unhealthy people here? If that person really loves what they're doing, how come they have to binge drink for 2 days on the weekend? What's wrong? You know, if they really love what they're doing, why are they addicted to drugs?
Yeah.
If they really love what they're doing, then how come they don't want to see their family? There's
something's going on maybe in their past, or
because one thing that I've found through, like I said, my organic research, I just get obsessed with like the way that people do things and nature and all that stuff, is that if you really want people to do the best that they can, they have to love what they're doing. Bottom line. Mm-hmm. So if we want a healthy community, what do you have to do?
Follow your passion.
And then be supportive. Other people need to be. It's not like, here we have a hard time doing that. It's like, if I'm supportive of you, I better get, like right now, I better get like 20 likes on Facebook. You know what I mean? Like if I don't get those likes, I'm taking my post down. You know what I mean? But it shouldn't be like that. It should just be unconditional support because, well, I mean, unconditional love is there. But like in our last conversation, maybe a lot of people don't like to feel that, or they're afraid of it, Like I was, when I did that speech for the Truth and Reconciliation for CrossFit Canada, I told them that the way that I teach the people at my gym is I care for them like as if they're my brothers and my sisters. So if you hurt yourself, which I don't want you to do, I'm gonna care about it at the deepest level. And now if I want to get really good at my job, don't you think that would be the best way to go? It's like the purest form of me helping you, right? And it's all there in our culture. Like it's literally, it's been laid out for us, that whole, but it's like I said in our last conversation, how I can say, hey, my friends or my brothers across the street, yeah, you can go play with them. I know you're safe. Like we have that unconditional love for each other here, but then how do we actually use that?
Yeah.
How can I guide you to doing something that you love and that you're going to feel good about and you're going to get better at? And then what do you do after that? Because you experienced that. What do you want for other people? The same thing you've had, but the survival mentality holds you back. I don't have enough to give. I'm sorry. I can't say that you're doing a good job because I'm afraid that I might lose something, and I feel like that might be where that comes from at least, so it's, the roles are different now is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But I think the deep part of that cultural mentality is because we say traditions, but like, one of our traditions today is we eat cornbread and steak on Sundays. You know what I mean? Like that's tradition, right? As much as we say that we don't, it's like, I'll see you on Sunday and we'll see what we're eating. You know what I mean?
It's cornbread day. It is tradition.
But our culture and our mental belief is this, to me at least, is that unconditional care for each other that we have. And, like going back to that speech that I had with CrossFit Canada, you have to remember that these are people that are not Indigenous, and the westernized mindset is different. I'm saying these things about how you should naturally care about people because it's good for business, and they're writing it down like this is some kind of like, can you repeat that please? Like, you know what I mean? So I think that if I were to empower somebody in Kahnawake, I would say that you have that, and you better find it, because it's very powerful to have that unconditional care for your neighbor. Like in Montreal, they can't do that. I don't know if they can do that in Shed. We have that, like that connection with each other, but we don't, like, and then we argue with each other, or somebody gets jealous or somebody gets envious because you have that and then we can talk about the men and their jobs. I have a nice truck, but your truck is nicer. I need the nicer one now. Like, how many trucks do we have in town? You know what I mean? So it's, I don't know.
Well, that's like I like what I'm hearing from all this is that they're seeing, like, the goal should be to do something that you love. Like, you hear that phrase, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. But how many people actually do that? Men and women.
And that's the reality too, is that I know I say that, but there are a lot of individuals who do have to, like, grind a little bit and survive to get to that point of thriving, because you can't just, like, if you have bills to pay, if you have to feed yourself, you have to feed your kids, you are going to have to grind a little bit. But I know individuals who don't have to do that. And they're still, like, I don't want to try something new because it's like we were saying earlier, it's something new and I'm vulnerable. I'd rather just do what all the other men are doing, because
there's a level of uncertainty and a level of not knowing.
Yeah. Even though I go home and I watch YouTube videos of whatever I really want to do, right? Like everybody does it, right? But then I go back to work and I'm just grinding, even though I don't have to. I don't want to change because it's not part of our social acceptance. pretty much, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds to me like there's something what you're saying resonates with the like values. Like you're doing this move, no one can see, you're doing this movement with your hands that's sort of like drawing down to the ground, you know. And to me that speaks of values, but values that are embodied, you know. And I'm coming back to what you were talking about, time, because you could be told that these are the things that are important, generosity and caring, right? And you could not know it on some kind of deep level, right? And that takes space. You need to have space to be able to explore what is it really like, what is it really to care for somebody, you know? And so it feels like do what you love. I'm sort of coming back to what I was saying before, but how do you even know? How do you even know what that is if you've never been given any space to really start to construct what is this? What does it mean to me? You know, to live a life that's in harmony with a value, you know, and not live a life that's in you know, harmony with just getting more stuff, you know, or making more money or being at the top of my game kind of thing. So it feels like that is lacking across the board, not only in this community, that is lacking all over the place. There's no space to stop for a moment and be like, okay, what's really important for me? Even when it's right up in my face, because the culture is telling me like, these are the things that should be important for you.
Well, I guess that's because like our reality that we live in, we could idolize our culture that's right in front of our face and like aspire to be that, but that it doesn't like you mentioned colonialism and like Western world coming in, like it's reshaped all of our views, especially Kahnawake being right next to one of Canada's major cities with such a massive history. Like our value system in a way has changed. Like we have our roles and responsibilities in our traditional culture, but how do we, I guess, blend them, or how do we make them, what's the word I'm looking for? How do we make them?
How do we integrate or
exactly.
revitalize?
Exactly.
I was going to jump in and say Kahnawake has its history too, even before the settlers, our visitors. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, and we talk about this a lot amongst our traditional teachers and my coworkers. We talk about it a lot, and I tend to find myself in spots where I'm like a liaison. I'm an ambassador. I'm teaching a little bit our non-Indigenous friends who we should be kind of just informing and educating, because they're not happy with the system either. So in a way, I've used this term. I say, you're settlers, but if in a colonial system, we'll all have the job of unsettling, shaking up the system and making improvements where we can. Of course, it's difficult because it's the mainstream, and the system is big: health, education, politics, and governance, all that, and the churches. It's all big systems, but you got to keep on trying. But just to follow with what John says, he's validating as he's speaking. There's all kind of teachings that are coming to mind that we should be following our life's purpose. Our life's purpose, and be allowed to explore that in our family and elsewhere. I imagine back in the day, people had a good idea of how to kind of read a young man or a woman growing up, and they could determine if they were good for leadership and hunting or speaking and those kind of things. So life's purpose is something that we talk about. So in my case, it took a long time for me to find a life's purpose, but I'm happy where I am. And along with that is just the traditional roles or applying the teachings in a modern day context. It's a challenge. And you talk about values. What are the values? We can say that peace, power, peace, good mind, and righteousness, or skana, gatnigunriyo, gasastasara, that kind of thing. There's a lot of discussion there, and how to apply it and how to use it. It's challenging too, because we've got pressures from everywhere. We got demands everywhere. So I'll leave it there. Don't have the answer, but I'll just lay that out there.
Well, I kind of feel like you guys are saying a lot of important things here, that like career choice, education, your role should all just like, do we do that? Do we have a thing to identify what people are good at?
That was something that Tom had brought up. But so he's saying that even like when we elected the chiefs, a while back. We had basically you had the oldest woman in the community choose the chief, and I think that makes sense because has the most experience with life. So she was be able to see, they watch them as their kids and say, I think he's going to be a pretty good one, and then go from there. And, it would be interesting to see how they could maybe even choose hunters and gatherers and things of that nature too, but the clan mother chose the chief, and then naturally he became a good leader. And, it's like, we have proof that to this day that these leaders were very strong because even the westernized people use them as examples for leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So if you tell me they're not like the Michael Jordan of leadership, you know what I mean? They are. They should have their own cards, their own trading cards. So what that tells me now is that's something, that was very powerful. And if you want to talk about what is our culture, then that's part of it, is the natural selection of roles, and it's not just a man does this, a woman does that. I think that there might have been cases where that's going to be a good leader, whether it's a man or a woman. Maybe. I don't know. That would be something to talk about, but that's interesting. But anyways, what I was going to say was I read this book called Mastery. And the book is basically a guide on how, if you want to get really good at something, this is where you start and this is where you finish. And it starts right from when you're a child. And at that point, at that age, like right when you're born, or when you start making, when a baby starts doing like their own thing, they just do the one thing constantly. And instead of the parent being like, oh, why do you do that all the time? They should be paying attention to that. Okay, this is something. And then from there, you go from there. And basically, he in the book, Robert Greene, the author, he uses, I think it's Leonardo da Vinci as an example. And he says that one is he had that self-belief to do things that were different, while the other kids made fun of him. And one of the things that he was obsessed with was plants. And the way that it describes that his obsession with plants was, he was so obsessed with it, he wanted to know how it happened. Like, how did it get to that? How did it grow? So he started drawing it, and he drew everything on it. And then without intention of making art, he made like a perfect picture of a flower, or whatever. And people seen that, they're like, you're really good at that. Oh yeah, I like this, And then how can you just facilitate that all the way through? And then he becomes this amazing artist, And then if you learn about every single person that has ever done something amazing with themselves, you learn that it starts from when they're an infant, But what intrigued me was learning about this, but also realizing that the clan mothers did the same thing with the chiefs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then why can't we do it today? You know what I mean? This is why I lift a lot of weight. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with you there. Like that, you mentioned time, Brent, John, you both talked about time. And I think maybe because of the way that our families are right now is that there is not a lot of time because both parents are working.
Mm-hmm.
So where are their children? Their children are in daycares or they're in schools. So you don't get to see those moments where their interests come out. But as an educator, I was a daycare educator for a number of years. I caught those moments with a lot of the kids that I was working with. So then parents are hearing it from a third party now instead of seeing it right in front of them. But I think that we do still see in youth what's happening. Like if we bring up sports, for example, parents have a big dream that their kid's going to be the top player in the NHL or lacrosse or insert whatever sport here. So like instead of, following their kids' natural gifts because they don't know what they are, because they're not, the time is a factor, right?
That's the observation. Yeah. Sure.
They're going to pick an interest for them real young and drill that in them real young. So now we're seeing like 3 and 4 year olds on the ice because they're going to be NHL stars one day.
Yeah, that was one thing that was mentioned in that book was a lot of it's usually around the teenagers. They have either their educators tell them they have to be a certain way. That's why you always hear about the best teachers are the ones that just told you, I believe in you, do what you want, I'll be there for you. Those are the best teachers, and I'll show you some cool things on the way there, You know,
Mhm.
I'll show you what I know. The parents, you know, like what you're saying, they have this dream of, I want to have my kid do this. But it's like, have you ever actually sat down and talked to your kid and asked them, do they want to do that? And is your kid just answering you because they don't want you to get mad at them? You know what I mean? So there's so many different things though that have to happen before you actually get to that point. But you're making the observation of, number one is, how can the parents know what their kids want to do if they're not there?
Mhm.
And then number two, how can the kid even, like, they have no guidance? You know, there's so many different things that happen with that. So there would have to be, it's like it always comes back to, it has to be a community thing, a community. Everybody has to participate. You know, they say like, it takes a community to grow a child. Is that what the saying is?
To raise a child.
To raise a child.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what that means. You know, there's so many, like when we have a tragedy, you know, this is something we need to pay attention to more. And one thing I thought about the other day is, when we have a tragedy in Ganawage, if we could all feel it the way that the mother feels it, if we wouldn't let it happen again. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think that is important, you know, because we're going to work really hard and we're going to start to ignore all the BS so that doesn't happen again. But it's like the westernized way is, I take care of my own family and you have your family and you have your family. But our way is
wasn't like that.
like what I'm practicing at the gym is, these are all my brothers and my sisters, you know, like I'm helping these guys, and it's even better because now we're talking to each other like we're brothers. You know what I mean? And you could have fun when you're talking to your brothers, like,
Because there's like a connection
Sure.
that's built.
yeah. And then there's also a care. There's a level of caring. Like, I want you to succeed because if you succeed, I do. And it makes me feel good, you know? So
I think I'm hearing you, and I feel like it's maybe something here is important to put out, is this sense of a privilege. Like I can imagine someone listening and be like, yeah, all that sounds great. I don't have time for that.
mhm.
Because we both have to work, you
Sure.
know? Because we have to make ends meet, you know, and sort of the recognition of what brings it to be like that now,
Mhm.
what brings it to be more individualistic
Mhm.
when it wasn't that way before. And so there's something I think that needs to be recognized in the history, the trauma, and how it could almost seem like, yeah, that sounds all nice and everything, but I can't not send my kid to daycare,
Mhm.
you know? So there's something about it feels like there's something important here to like take away the responsibility on the individual parent, you know, because if they're alone, of course they're not going to be able to do
Right.
that kind of thing. They're not going to be
Yeah.
able to make the space
Mhm.
for that.
So there's still like a level of survival going
Yeah,
on.
sure.
We're still at a survival
Sure.
level.
Yeah, it's a hard, like what I'm talking about with this, bringing up the person to become something that they're good at and provide and in their own way or teach in their own way or whatever. It's probably one of the hardest things to do in the world. You know, it's a very hard thing to do. But what's the point of, like, to me, the way I think is, are we going to try or are we just going to say we can't do it? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So then we just identify, well, number one is, like we said earlier, well, maybe a lot of people don't even know about this, and they don't know that that's what's going on. They just think that that's normal. You know, they think that this is normal. This is the way that it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then once they hear that, they start to spark some kind of, maybe I can change something. You know, maybe I can try at least. And then you figure out, like we're saying with the parents, there are some parents who are together, so they have that already. And there's some parents who are separate. But I'll tell you one thing that's very beautiful about our culture is that it shouldn't really matter that much because there's a family there.
Yeah.
You know, and we have, that's almost like we have leverage in that sense because that's part of our culture. You know, like if I have, like if my stepfather is a good father to me, it shouldn't matter, you know? And honestly, I think that we have in our community, we should have more than one father and we should have more than one mother. Obviously, biologically, we have one.
Yeah.
But spiritually, we should have way more.
Well, it's in our language too, because we don't have a word for aunt
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
or anything. It's
then-
Ista. Every woman that's older than you is Ista.
And then you have to ask, why is that?
Yeah.
You know, where does that come from? We didn't just say those things. It's because we actually felt that at a certain point. That's how it was, you know, and then that's like what you're saying. How can we modernize. I think a good word was modernize our culture and bring it up to date.
To kind of fit, because like we are still living literally in that 2-row wampum. Like we still have to exist in the Western world,
right?
Or Westernized thinking, and we still have to exist outside of this town. So like that's where a lot of those pressures are coming from, like the money and the work and the cost of living is crazy, and like so that's a question, right? Like how do we modernize and integrate traditional values with current situations?
I just say some things never grow old. Just the idea of nurturing and taking care of one another. And if you want to throw in peace and good mind, those things, but they need to be nurtured as well. Sometimes when you're born into a family, you don't have that peace. There's some things that you have to work on, maybe when you're older, or you rely on extended family. And the thing I wanted to add in is what's great about Native Indigenous communities is the relationships, and Mohawk in particular is very strong. Relationships biologically and with creation, and in the Longhouse we see that the other side of the fire, all that brings us stronger. I mean, it still exists, but not consistently. But if we bring those together, of course, it comes together in crisis. Always in crisis, sometimes we come together.
It does.
Look at 1990 and other things, fundraising coming together. That's great. But then it seems to die. It's there, but we kind of resort back to the way the competition, individual, and we touched on it too. The collective is really should be something that we should keep in mind, not just us. And then thinking of the future generations, which is important too.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I was thinking about that the other day too, how we're so powerful when it comes to like the last, you know what I mean? It's like, all right, guys, we got to get together now. Like, but why does it have to be like that all the time?
Has to get to a breaking point.
But imagine what it would be like if we can be like that when we're, like I'm saying, thriving, you know? Imagine how strong we would be. And I feel like there was a point in time where we were like that and we knew about that. And like I said, you know, like, I mean, one of the general ideas that I have about a lot of this, I guess you can say we're talking about males and their mental health and things like that, is we're lost in that sense, and we're looking for something, and maybe it's already there. I know a lot of people say this, that we should go outside of the community and to be successful, and we should leave and things like that. And that's where we're going to find the answer. But I think that the answers are already here. But I think that we might not have the courage to actually unfold them yet. We'd rather leave and then come back when everything's okay. But like, you know, it's like being at the gym. If you want to lift 500 pounds, you better show back up here every day for 5 years, and then you'll be able to do it. But you got to deal with the shit first. And it's the same thing for an addict. You got to deal with the shit. And if you want to be sober, it's going to suck. You know, that's why it's easy for them to relapse and go back to it. You know, I want to get these thoughts out of my head. So what's the difference between that and somebody who ignores in peace? You know, I know somebody that does that. I know a lot of people that do that. I used to do that when I was a teenager. Everything's perfect. It's a beautiful day outside. The birds are chirping. It's good. Let's go get a 6-pack. This is a perfect time. It's a drinking day today. So we're so accustomed to that. But what is that really? Maybe I'm not happy that everything's perfect. Maybe I can't settle with the fact that it's a beautiful day outside. I need to sabotage it somehow, you know? And we need to celebrate. Like, no, we don't. Just, you know, we talk about being grateful and having gratitude. Well, I think a lot of that is just being able to sit down and enjoy yourself. Like, just be there. You don't have to do anything, you know? But I know a lot of people who do that. They'll sabotage. Everything's going beautiful. I have relatives that do this. Everything's good. Their life is good. They talk to me. Oh, yeah, it is good. All of a sudden you hear about them. Where were they last night? You know, things like that. It's like, that's not good, you know? But there's so many people that do that here. There's, at least that I know, you know?
It's like it's almost like a fear of peace.
Sure.
Of satisfaction, of happiness, of success.
And then you have to ask, where does that come from?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, why are people so afraid to be happy?
Well, Karina, it's who is telling you that you're not allowed to be happy?
That's it too.
You know, who is
That's
telling you that you're not allowed to feel like that? You know, it's like I said, like the answers are here, but you have to like be willing to sit down and think about it for real, and then when you know what's going on, like for me, my answer to that was I try to teach the people the medicine that I discovered, which was being aware of my body and conscious. And then with that, I can train my mind at the same time to be healthy. I can train my mind to be calm. It's more of a calm, and then I can teach that because I know that this is going to be like, it's good. I'll just say business is good, but I knew that it was something, and I tell people this all the time, like mental health isn't, all right, we need to sit in a room full of crystals,
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like one crystal doesn't work, buy another one, two crystals don't work, buy three. No, it's dealing with reality, the real stuff, and at least mine isn't the cure or mine isn't the answer, but imagine if we could have more people find their answers and then teach them. I don't really, he's an amazing guy, but Russell's fine. He teaches art.
Yeah.
And he loves it,
Yeah.
and I think that's very good that he does that. I think that he should keep doing it. And I think that he can get really good at it. And I think that he can provide for a lot of people doing that.
Yeah. That's his gift.
And then it's more people. We need more people like that. And in the modern world, what the issue is, does it make enough money? That's that's the big elephant in the room.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And that's hard to get around that. Like I said, most people have to get into the survival mode first, make enough money, and then I can thrive. But some people, they stay in that survival mode forever, and then they can switch over. Or you see a lot of, like one thing I like to thank my father for and my family is that they allowed me to do this. Like they worked really hard, and I'm going to give thanks to them by showing them that I can do this. I can be different and I can be strong and I can do what I love and I can love myself, and I know that like a lot of people would have a hard time saying things like that, but I don't like I said in the last podcast, that it should be okay that I can talk like this,
Yeah.
It should be okay. And I would say the same thing about other people. If you can do the same thing, it feels pretty good. And like, I would recommend it, yeah, I feel like I've just been talking the whole time. So,
Well, you brought up a lot of.
That's true. No, I'm just teasing.
Well, I want to point out the hard work that you're speaking about, though, but not necessarily in the same way. I mean, obviously you've done a lot of hard work, but you're talking about some other kind of work, right? And the sacrifice of that. Yeah. There's this question that I wonder about with what the things you're bringing up is like, but are we ready to sacrifice these other kinds of quote unquote happiness? They're more immediate. There's a lot more immediate, than you talking about the 5 years. Like you can get a nice car and feel good almost right away about that, And so it sort of goes back to what we were speaking about in the other podcast too, like the care, like what do I care about for my family? If I'm sort of given some room to be able to care about a different kind of happiness, a well-being, and if I know the value of that, and if I can maybe even touch it because I've seen it in other people, well, then maybe it makes it easier for me to take a path that isn't so accessible. That takes a different kind of work to do, sort of like what you're talking about, the path that you've taken.
Well, there's like a lot of careers out there that would be considered, I guess, more or less risky. Like there's the starving artist. Like money is always a factor in everything you do. And like, if you're a musician, you're not guaranteed to be successful in terms of money. If you're an athlete, there's a time where your sports career is going to end. Maybe you're going to get injured or something, like those, I guess, are the quote unquote opening a gym, starting your own business. Those are like the risky things. Right. And I feel like not just men, but some women too, we kind of shy away from those because there is a level of risk in it because the money part is so important. So talking back about your values, like that instant gratification of a truck or whatever, $75,000 unit for nothing, versus that's like an instant, like now that's gratifying versus maybe in a few years you're going to have a down payment for a house or something like that. Like in our town, our values are kind of twisted a little bit. But again, I think that comes from this notion of survival again, because we're not all families are wealthy here. So like I come from a family, little bit of disclosure, we're not a wealthy family. I grew up on welfare my entire life, with a single mom and everything else. So it's like we don't even know what to do with money. Yeah. Like if we earn money, like now for myself, like I work and everything else, but there's very little, what's the term here actually? Financial literacy. Like we don't know how to spend it. We don't know how to save it.
We know how to spend it. Don't want to save it.
We definitely know how to spend it.
The car dealerships in the surrounding area love us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they'll pull out all the stops.
Best deals.
But that's it. Are we like where do we learn how to spend our money? Or what are our values here when it comes to spending money?
You know what's interesting about that is that the conversation stemmed from you talking about the short-term gratification, and at my gym I have a poster or a painting hanging up on the wall by Louis Hall, and I didn't know him, but I know that he was important in terms of our pictures, and I'm pretty sure he was the one that had created the warrior. I could be wrong. The warrior flag, if any of you know the right.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true. And the painting is it's of an Indian or native person holding a boulder on his back, and he's climbing a mountain. And at the bottom it says, "Comfort comes as a friend and departs as the master." And what he says in there is that the ancient Indian used to practice physical, mental, and spiritual mastery. We used to practice it because we knew that it would pay off in the long run. And then it brings you to the next conversation where you talk about 7 generations down the road. If I want my 7 generations, which is a very long time, to thrive, what do I have to do today? Make sacrifices, So when we talk about even financial literacy, it's in our culture to be financially literate. Even
when it comes down to saving seeds in the garden.
We should know that, like, I know the Tesla Cybertruck, like it comes to my mind every day, at least for like 5 minutes.
It's your Roman Empire.
I know it would be cool to have, but one thing I think about with my financials is that when I have a family, I want to be able to make sure that they're safe and secure, and I don't want to have to worry about a lot of stuff. So teaching this to myself over and over again was, I'm pretty comfortable now, but instant gratification was, it comes hand in hand with my job too. This is going to suck today, but in years' time, it's going to pay off. People ask me, like, what motivates you to keep doing that? When the director for CrossFit Canada and the international director for CrossFit came to the gym, they're like, I told them about 1990 and all these things, and they had no idea that this happened to us. And one of them lives in Montreal. They're like, how are you not mad? I said, do you see what my body looks like? Do you see my workouts that I do all the time? You think I don't have some kind of emotion towards this? But I decided to use it in a different way than what most people would assume, or at least do, And so like I said earlier, that's my way of changing my narrative. But it's also motivating to know that the ancient Indians used to practice this as well, So this is why some people will shrug it off and be like, that's just a quote that you took from Instagram or Facebook or something, hard work pays off and all that. I'm like, no, this is actually a thing that works. And I think that everybody should practice it, because even when you teach somebody about delayed gratification, knowing that they can take care of themselves has its own, we'll say, instant gratification to it. And Tom, you probably know that and you guys probably know that when you help somebody, you feel like that's good enough. You don't need the nicest truck. You don't need the biggest house. You don't need the most money. And that was another thing I want to bring up is where is that competitiveness coming from when it comes to finances? Like, that's not part of our, that's not our people. We don't do that. Like, where did we learn that from? Is is it still part of the survival where if this person's beating me, I might lose everything. So even at the highest level, you're still fighting, you know? Even when you have all that stuff, you're still fighting. Why are you still fighting? You know, you have enough to actually provide and help the community thrive, to be honest. But until you change that mentality, until you make that sacrifice, that delayed gratification, and you take your, let's say 100 million and you decide to give 50 million to the community, right? And you say that I still have enough, which is 50 million is pretty good, you know? And you say, I'm doing this because I want my community to thrive, you know? But some people, they just hold on to as much as they can and this could be financially, this could be, like we said, with the men, emotionally. I don't want to cry. I can't cry. Why? Because I'm going to lose everything, or people are going to see me weak. It's like, who cares? Honestly, who cares? But if you care that much, that means that you don't have, like, you're about to, why do you feel like that's the last resort, you know?
So in a way, I could kind of see it being equated to like this version of power.
Mm-hmm.
But then if we're thinking collectively in our community here, power against who?
Yeah, for real. Honestly.
Against each other?
Mm-hmm.
Because we are just, if this were like 500 years ago, we'd all be living in the same village, in the same longhouse.
Mhm.
So who are you trying to power up? Like, I guess.
I'm reminded of a story, time for a funny moment. From me, of course. I was friends with a vice president of Catelli Corporation, I guess the food company.
Is that the like noodles and pasta?
Yeah, and they provided at the time meals, rations for the Canadian forces. Anyway, he says, we're on a first name basis. He says, Tom, don't ever think about joining the rat race like I have, rising up through the ranks, vice president of marketing or whatever it is. Don't even think about joining the rat race, because at the end of the day, you're still a rat. Mm-hmm. He just had a good laugh. I said, I knew what he meant. Mm-hmm. The competition, and he went on further to say he lost himself. Mm. He was so driven that he lost himself, broken marriage. After a few years, I followed up with him, and he's happy living in the Eastern Townships. Got traded in his expensive vehicle, and even funnier, got into picking mushrooms, picking close to the land, which kind of made sense. He wanted to be hands-on, and that's a grounding thing too, to be on the land. Mm-hmm. And that was good medicine for him. Yeah, his name is Giancarlo, Italian.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me think of wealth, and you've spoken a few times or a couple of times over this 2 hours, John, about the something about resources in the community, and it makes me think about wealth. What you're saying, Tom, and I wonder, like, is there access to this wealth that has nothing to do with money?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good thing to look at, because if we assume that actual money is the only wealth, then this is why everybody's wanting more of it. But then it's like, well, if that's the actual true happiness or the true goal, then why can't people settle with a certain amount? So there's the other wealth that we can talk about, where it's like what I said earlier, how you make people. Honestly, I think as human beings, what we're supposed to do is help other people. Because then you get that sense of connection. You get that sense of, I've done something good today. And it's just, we're like, as a species, that's what we are. We're a communal species, and we can't argue against like natural law, So when we're looking for what is our purpose, it's like, help each other, and that's pretty wealthy. We going back to what I said earlier about our chiefs and how westernized people use them as examples of leadership because they were so good at what they did. They weren't the wealthiest people. If anything, I think that a true chief is going to be the one with the least amount of possessions, but they have the most power in the community, because if they need anything, everybody's going to be there for them.
Yeah.
So they don't have a lot of stuff, but their value and their wealth and their happiness comes from knowing that they have the will and the knowledge to help everybody around them if they can, And then obviously, like now, it's like modernized days. It's nice to have toys. Like you could have the toys, but I don't think that should be what males should strive for, because that's all it is toys.
You're what you're saying is reminding me of the relational aspects that maybe we might have touched on the last podcast, like the things that men are not necessarily raised to be sensitive to, but you're talking about things that remind me of generosity, and as a relational quality, it in its essence is reciprocal. If you are giving from the heart, you are gaining at the same time, maybe even more.
Yeah.
And so finding a career or a job or whatever where you can touch into these kinds of reciprocal qualities, love being another one, care you've mentioned, and we can imagine how that allows us to be in places that don't necessarily give us the financial
it's a different kind of feeling.
It's a different kind of
yeah, and it's very dangerous with the financial one too, because if I make $100, I can make $1,000. But hey, I made $1,000, I can make $10,000. But Jimmy has $10,000, I can make $100,000. But then on the way there, what are you doing? Are you ignoring your family? Are you hurting people? So that's another thing that you talk about as a male and your income, at least. But that's it's like you're sacrificing the wealth that we're talking about in order to gain the financial wealth. You're giving away all moral value so that you can have the most possessions.
And to me, that's a deal breaker. You're sacrificing too much if you gotta do that, go that way.
And then what's unfortunate about that is that I believe that can come from trauma. That can come from, I don't know when to stop. It can be, I don't have any moral values because I was never taught that and I don't understand it. So then this is, like we said it earlier, this is why you have to talk about it. Some people don't even know about these things, but that's definitely a big thing, is having that financial, okay, it's nice to have stuff. And if you have everything that you can provide for yourself and your family, perfect, beautiful. If you can enjoy a vacation, once in a while, it's even better. But if you have to be more financially set off than everybody else because it's a competition, I would make the argument that that's probably toxic. You're not actually happy. I don't think you ever will be.
It's because it's the thing that the motivation, like the drive, I'm at a loss for words here.
It's coming from a different place of
intention.
So that would be something to really look at too, is do men actually, what is your motive? Is it financial, or is it financial health, you're wealthy, or is it spiritual health, the reason why you like to do things?
Yeah. So the way that I'm seeing it right now is that there's clearly just trying to find a balance between financial wealth and then pure happiness and satisfaction and fulfillment. And the next layer underneath that is, like, some people, it takes them a really long time to figure out what fulfills them. Like Tommy mentioned, you tried a whole bunch of different things, and then
it was good. But then settled in.
Yeah, like you found your place, and then Brent, you mentioned right at the beginning that you spent too many years in school because there was other facets of learning to do what you wanted to do. And then we have John, who seemed to, like, you seemed like you were supported to find your path almost right away. So I think that the common thing here is that, like, men, women, all people just need to have that support system to be like, okay, you like comics, for example, and you're a good drawer, so why don't you keep doing that? Or if you notice your 3-year-old is singing and whatever all the time, so you sign them up for piano lessons, or like, but again, it's about the time, right? And then it comes back to that balance. So how do you balance their wealth with the fulfillment? And how do we remove that financial burden so that we have more time to find these things out? So it kind of all connects in this.
It's so funny that you say it always comes back to that. There's not enough time. And it makes you wonder how disconnected we are from the natural world that we have to think like that, you know? Like, I don't have enough time to pay attention to my kids to see if they're good at something and pay attention to these. It's like,
And
what
it
do
sounds
you...
so awful to say but it's a reality.
But the irony of it, Karina, is that is actually the right way that you should be doing things, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But we're so worried about not providing or whatnot that we ignore it, you know? And a lot of people are scared of doing that. It is very scary to fail over and over and over and over again. And then when you think you finally got it, you don't got it. And then you try again, and then you do it again, and then you do it again. And then finally you got something, and then you keep building on that, right? A lot of people can't do that, but it's like, it's all there. Like I said, people go out of town, they go out to all these places and look for the answers, but it's all there. We already have it here, but it's not easy. It's really hard to do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny that you say that. It's, you know, it's like I said, it's, I don't have enough time to pay attention to what my child really wants to do. I'm just going to tell them all the stuff that I think that they should do and go to work. Like, that's actually kind of not okay, you know?
Yep.
Like, if anything, like one thing that my mother told me when I brought home my first girlfriend was, if you get her pregnant, it's about the kid now. So she scared me right away, you know?
I want to meet your mother.
She's wonderful. We should have her come on.
Yeah, she's actually amazing. But what she taught me was, it's like literally everything that you do when you have a child, it should be about the child now. And then going back to our culture, what is it? That's exactly what it is. We always preach about the next generation. What can we do for the next generation? What can we do this? What can we do that? And then we go home and we watch Netflix for 3 hours after that, you know? But it's like, my jokes are crazy, but I know. But what are you actually doing to make that investment? Like I'm saying, you could even argue that it's a delayed gratification. You know, one time I was sitting in the truck with my brother, and he has 2 sons, and my brother's a really good father. He's, you know, I love him for that. And my nephew's in the back just asking all the questions that kids ask, you know, and I'm answering all of them. And my brother just looks at me, is like, John, just agree to all of them, you know? And it was that time where I was like, what was I saying now? Pay attention, you know, pay attention to them. And we're so used to just turning off for a little while with the kids. Just agree. But you never know. The kid might say something that's like very important in their life, you know? And I think that's one thing that we should pay attention. I mean, we're pretty good at it here though, too. Like with the kids, we care about our kids a lot here.
Yeah. And
we have a lot of love for our kids. And then it's like, well, let's make that even better. How can we get them to do the things that they love, you know? And then you can even talk about, as a man, what can I do for that? Well, first, I better start talking about my feelings, right?
Yeah.
Because if I'm holding on to stuff, I can't work, at least in that sense. I can probably build a house without ever speaking a word, right?
Yeah.
I can hammer a few nails in, take my anger out. But if I never actually talk about the way I feel, I might not be able to help my kid, you know? And then the same thing for a woman. It's like, that's what my mother told me, is as soon as the kid's in, it's about them, you know? So like Tom said, if I'm not fully healed yet, and I can't wonder how this happened if I already know, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's all there. Like I said, I keep repeating it. It's all here already. We already know what we have to do, but it's very hard, you know? It's very, very hard, especially when we have, when Canada, the CrossFit Canada came over and they feel bad for us, you know? So we think that we're like, they walked in. So what happened was Karina was there because she's part of the class, but I had been invited to CrossFit Canada to an affiliate summit. So basically what it is all the CrossFit affiliates in the area get to come to this meeting and talk about business and community. And of course, being Indigenous, they wanted me to do what is
opening?
No, what is it called? Land acknowledgement.
Oh, yeah.
So they want me to do that, you know. And I said, yeah, I'll take the gig. So I went there, and I thought it was a good chance for me to just talk about myself, honestly, because it's like You know, sometimes they'll ask you, can you tell us about Indigenous people? It's like, oh, I'll just tell you about myself because I'm Indigenous, you know? So I didn't have anything written down, but I just spoke and I told them about everything. And next thing you know, the international director and the director for Canada, they wanted to come check out Karina's teen class on Monday, which was after that weekend, you know, the following Monday. And what was interesting to them was that I was able to reach out to all of the not the dynamics, but the different ages, teenagers, young youth, like middle-aged people, and even the elders, you know, because the most CrossFit gyms only cater to a certain age group. So they were amazed by that I was able to do that. Or Karina, it's really all Karina that does that. So they came and they checked it out, and while they were there, I was able to tell them about 1990 and, you know, all the stuff that goes on in Ganawage. And I was getting the feeling, the same feeling that I get when I watch the news and I see, you know, those people, they sign up to go to like Africa and they want to help them build huts and stuff like that. That's what I felt like. I felt like the people that were in Africa, and my example is horrible, but I felt like that at the time, like they were feeling sorry for me and they needed to help me. I didn't like it. I didn't like that feeling, you know, and it wasn't because I felt like I needed help. Mm-hmm. It was because I felt like we already got this. Don't worry. But a lot of us don't know that yet. So, and then obviously the reaction of a westernized mindset, or at least in that sense, was let's buy them a shitload of supplements. So sorry for swearing.
That's okay.
Not the first time. Won't be the last. No.
But so they showed up with all like too much. Like they're walking in with apples and all these things. And I remember I looked at Karina and I'm like, this is crazy. Like they're bringing so much stuff in, right?
Do they think we're starving? Quote unquote.
But that's interesting to observe because it might help sometimes to take a third person perspective to see, you know, and I was upset about that a little bit, you know, about this is how they see us, you know, because I don't feel like that. It shows that there actually is something there, you know, but one of the things that really, like I said in the last one, stuck out to me was that we do have that power of community, and we almost have that, like that magic, that answer that they want. How do you hit all of the demographics?
Yeah.
How do you hit all of the demographics like that, John? I said, well, Karina is like my relative, you know, these kids, they trust Karina because that's like their mother or their big, I think more of a big sister, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's very, because they're like, they're looking at me, Karina, they're like, how are they listening to her right now? I'm like, how are they not listening to her? You know what I mean? Like it's fun what they're doing. They're having fun. So then they couldn't believe it. And then same thing with the people my age. How do you get them to do what you're doing? You know, one is, I know that a lot of people need to start feeling good about themselves in the community, you know, and I think that this is a way to do it. And then the elders is, well, let me give them a sense of hope. One of my first classes with the elders was, let me see you get on the floor and then get back up, you know, and they needed my help at the beginning, but I said, well, we can do it, you know, and now they can't stop dancing every time Motown comes on. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy in there, but I don't even know where I started with this, but I can't stop talking.
I'm connecting the points.
Yeah.
It's a supporting, empowering,
mm-hmm. Nurturing, encouraging.
Yeah.
All these things come to mind.
Like when you told me about this men's mental health podcast, I'm like, you want to talk about men's mental health? You know what I mean? Like that's literally what I practice every day, all the time. Yeah. You know, and I try to teach it from my advantage and my leverage that I have with the community is that I'm actually part of the community and I can relate to everything that these men are going through. And I know about all those pressures. I know about the financial pressure. I know about the pressure of not sharing your feelings. And I know how hard it is to cry in front of other people. But a little tip is that women actually like it when you cry. So it's...
He's actually flexing in the studio. I'm kidding.
No, so it's, you know, it's not a bad thing.
No, it's really not a bad thing.
Yeah, but that's interesting too, because then it's like, well, if you can make the woman feel comfortable, well, aren't you doing something right? You know what I mean? Like,
honestly, it's all about connection.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can't connect to anybody if they're closed off.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is actually a good point where we could maybe wrap it up a bit. I actually have some teens that are going to be waiting for me in about 45 minutes too.
Yeah, that's
so
true. Yeah.
But once again, like the conversation here, it went all over the place, but it's all connected. It went from just get a job, to fulfillment and satisfaction, to money being a motivator, money being survival, and survival being another motivator, into like integrating it all back into like traditional cultural responsibilities and roles. Like it tied everything all together, everything that we talked about. And it's just at the very core of it all comes back to vulnerability. It literally just comes back to that. And I think that the more that we talk about these things in the episodes that are coming up, we're going to see that that is probably still going to be at the center of everything. So I don't even really know what to say here, but for sure. Sorry, go ahead.
There's certainly more topics, more areas to delve into.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
I would kind of debate whether vulnerability is at the center, but it's a fluid kind of balance. It's like a carpenter's level. You work on some area, emotional or the physical part. You can also provide for the financial that takes care of your physical needs. So sometimes, but you always have to work at it and be encouraged to work at it. That's where you get the benefits.
Well, thank you for that perspective, because it does make sense. Vulnerability falls into that spiritual, emotional health. And like, I wouldn't say that that's the core for sure, because there's physical, emotional, social, all those aspects, spiritual health, right? So like for sure, but it is a common point that maybe we're missing in a lot of these areas. We got to take care of all of it.
Yeah. Love to come back for the spiritual part.
Yeah.
Maybe if you let me.
Of course.
See
I will drop some emails.
Just trying to more every time.
Yeah,
I want to catch up with John.
I'm really sorry. I felt like I just talked the whole time.
But that's what we need. We need conversation, and we need to talk. So thank you guys again for sticking with me for the second episode. I know we've been here now for like 3.5 hours. So thank you for that. But we are going to wrap things up right now. So thank you to the listeners for tuning in, and we'll catch you for the next episode. Yamagoa.
The views and opinions of the guests expressed in this podcast do not reflect those of wase and its employees.